Hello, so today we're going to be talking about emblems. I'm going to be going through the emblems in set 14 of TFT. I'm going to be ranking them on this tier list, similar to how we've been doing with some of the other tier lists as a more for fun week, because I've been super busy this week. But basically, I'm going to be ranking them relative to each other and kind of talk about how important or strong the emblem is with respect to how you can play it, as well as the comps. A big reason why I wanted to do this video is because I did the ranking of all of the augments and kind of doing a discussion and talking about the different augments in set 14. Something that I left out of those videos were emblems, because the emblem augments are very situational on whether or not they're super powerful for your board. However, a lot of these emblems have bonus effects as well as some hidden interactions, so I want to discuss them and kind of talk about them a little bit. So we're going to do another one of these tier lists for fun videos. After this, we're going to be doing no more tier lists for the rest of the week, or maybe the rest of the month. We'll see. It's going to be mostly back to the guides. I'm just working on those on the back, those in the background, like the forecast guide that's going to be out on Sunday, and Orn Artifact guide is going to be out next Monday. So if you're looking forward to those, make sure to like and subscribe, because it does help me out as a TFT content creator. Anyways, let's get straight into it. So usually I kind of reserve D tier for like ones that I haven't really had that much experience with, but I'm basically going to rank them from S to D tier, S being like really strong emblems that you're happy to see almost always and can really spike your board and also have a lot of flexibility, and then C tier being not necessarily that they're like really bad or that the trait is really bad. It's more so that it's very situational, and the conditions for you to have like a really good spot for it is going to be a lot less than some of the other ones. Not much to do, let's go through it. We're going to go through them vertically, and when they have bonus effects, I will talk about them. So Anima Squad. Anima Squad in general is pretty good, but I'm going to put it around B tier. I think it's very average, so it's a little bit forcing. A lot of times when you have Anima Squad emblems, because you're trying to play around 7 Anima Squad. 7 Anima Squad as a comp actually really likes to have an emblem, because there's a lot of really good 5 costs that you can play with the board, namely Viego, which Viego got a little bit nerfed, so he's not super incredible right now. You also have Garen that can make great use of Anima Squad, and even Renekton, because you have Bastion synergy. So there's a lot of 5 costs that you would like to play, and hitting them early can actually spike your board really well. The Anima Squad emblem itself, just like the Anima trait, if you read over it, it gives you armor and it also gives you damage amp, so it can work really well with these frontline units that can make use of both the armor as well as have the extra damage amp to do extra damage. It's actually a really good emblem to have in general, but the only problem is that it tunnels you into the Anima Squad board, which is a very tempo based board, and there are better tempo options. It's not something that's necessarily going to be the greatest thing to play and hit, and you know, having 3 or even 5 Anima isn't that crazy. A lot of times like the emblem or just activating Anima isn't like insane for your board to do via emblem, so that's why it's just in B tier. Kind of like, to me, it's like very average, right? If you're playing Anima and you want to play Anima and you have a good Anima spot, then of course it's really good. Take it. You're gonna have a great Anima board. You're gonna have a great Anima time. But if you're not playing Anima, it's not something that's like you really need. And even if you are playing Anima, it's not something that's 100% essential a lot of the time. It just helps you to stabilize a lot earlier with respect to like hitting those thresholds. Bastion emblem. So Bastion emblem right now, I can't find a great use for it myself. Maybe there's going to be a smarter person out there that comes up with something, because Bastion does have a bonus effect. Basically, it has gain 10% of armor and magic resistance as ability power, so it can scale you really well, because all of the frying pan ones this set, all of the frying pan emblems this set, have like a bonus effect, which is really cool on some of them. But for Bastion, in general, it's like a pretty good trait, right? Like obviously you can get Bastion emblem and you can play it on almost every board. So I'm not going to put in like D tier as being like really bad, or like, you know, like big question mark. It's more so just, I'm just going to put in C tier. I think that it's not something you're really excited to see. There's not really a comp that makes use of vertical Bastion, like 6 Bastion. So a lot of times a Bastion emblem is just nice to have like the extra 2 Bastion synergy, just to give you like that frontline trait activated. However, the bonus effect isn't getting used that much, and it's not something you really want to take. Like, it's not like I'm going to see an augment that says get a Bastion emblem. I'm going to be like, oh, whoopee-doo, I'm so excited to get my Bastion emblem here. It's kind of something you make as like a last resort a lot of the times, and if you can just fit in the 2 Bastion synergy to get it on your board, then it's pretty good. But I think compared to some of the other ones, I just want to make room for them. It'll be C tier. Maybe we'll move everything up a tier if we end up like, you know, running out of space at the top end or at the bottom end and we don't have S tiers and stuff. But for right now, I would say it's like a tier below Anima in terms of like priority of how important I think it would be. Boombot emblem is kind of in that same tier as Bastion in my opinion. I think Boombot emblem is very particular. I think that 6 Boombot is extremely strong. However, 6 Boombot, if you think about the Boombot board, let's just go through Boombots for example. I'll talk to you about it. Like I've been researching Boombots a little bit because I haven't done my how to play Boombot guide. So I've actually been like looking into it and looking up a bunch of stuff and like trying to watch some VODs of better players and stuff like that to try and get like a good sample of understanding of it. 6 Boombot is very strong. It also got buffed. It's just good. It deals a lot of magic damage. The thing with Boombots is really awkward is that you want to cap around Urgot, but Urgot items are more AD focused, and a lot of your other units are either tank, and a lot of times your stabilization point is Fiddlesticks, which is AP. So it feels like if you have a Boombot emblem, you kind of want to like reroll Kog'Maw, but then still make it to Urgot. That's like the best success a lot of the time that you can play around it. It's really hard to tempo and stabilize with just playing 6 Boombot or even 4 or 5 Boombot, because a lot of times you want to play the other synergies, right? If you're playing Fiddlesticks, you want to have all the Bruisers in. If you're playing Skarner is like a completely different frontline trait, so it kind of feels a little bit awkward if you're trying to support the Cho'Gath with like 6 Bruiser and Fiddlesticks. Then Skarner doesn't fit in really nicely and then doesn't really do anything because he's basically just a substitute tank that doesn't tank anything without any synergies active. And then Kog'Maw, like, you know, you want to play into that like rapid fire kind of board, and you could play rapid fire Vanguards with like a TF like overlap board kind of sometimes. But it's just like a little bit awkward, right? Like playing 6 Boombot, if you can get there, like if I could just make it to like this, you know what I mean? If I could just teleport to that board and have a Boombot emblem on somebody and a bunch of Bruisers, it's like, of course this board's gonna be broken, but it's like, it's really hard. It's not like Anima Squad in the sense where it like spikes you in your mid game in a meaningful way. A lot of times it's just like you're playing like 3 Boombot with your Boombot emblem because you're better off playing the deeper frontline synergy to give your Kog'Maw time to ramp up or to give your Fiddlesticks time to ramp up. So it's like really, it's just like, it feels very awkward. That's why I want to put in Siege. I want to put a tier below what I would say is like the average, which is Anima Squad. Bruiser Emblem. I think Bruiser Emblem is really strong because of the Fiddlesticks comp. So this is just hard carried because of the Fiddlesticks comp. If you don't know, Bruiser has an interaction where for every 240 max health, you deal 1% bonus damage as magic damage. This works really well with Fiddlesticks because it stacks with like his multiple like hitting and everything. So it actually works out to be a good chunk of extra damage on the Fiddlesticks. So it works really well. With like Fiddlesticks Bruiser, that we like, you know, if you haven't seen this comp, you basically just play Bruisers with Fiddlesticks, and it's a pretty good comp, and then you ramp up the Fiddlesticks with like Archangels ideally if you can. The thing is, I feel like even with the Bruiser emblem and the bonus damage from the Bruiser emblem, it's not like giga broken like S tier. It makes this comp really good, but besides Fiddlesticks, there's not many other great users of the Bruiser emblem that can take advantage of its bonus effect. And even this comp, I think, without having like a rolling augment or something that like helps you to hit, so either like rigged shop or what's the other one, rigged shop or shop glitch, right? Something that really helps you to hit like your 3-star 3 cost really efficiently. Like I feel like even this board is going to be very unstable without the Fiddlesticks 3 and another 3-star front line to help you to ramp up. Like a lot of times you just easily go like bot 4 very fast, even though it's like a quote-unquote broken setup and it's quote-unquote really good. Comparatively to like some of the other Fiddlesticks conditions like Ornn artifacts, I actually like a lot better. I feel like when you have an Ornn artifact on the Fiddlesticks, you can stabilize a little bit earlier because it translates to like more damage. Like if you have snipers, for example, it feels like he's like more stable. Maybe that's just me though. That comes down into opinion later, but it's still going to go into the A tier because it does unlock that Fiddlesticks comp, and it is like, it makes that Fiddlesticks comp not only playable but like very, very strong. So I don't want to put in B tier because, like, you know, it obviously has its merit. And then we'll see if in the future there becomes another board that can make use of the Bruiser frontline very efficiently or very effectively. Then this can also work well on other units that have dot damage. I thought it would be good on Morgana in a similar idea. I tried it out and it fucking sucked. So don't do it on Morgana. I wasted my LP so you guys don't have to. Or maybe I just built her wrong. Who knows? Maybe you can waste your LP if you want to try. But I would just warn you guys, like, I was wrong when I thought that might work. My bad. Anyways, Divinicorp Emblem. I think Divinicorp Emblem is A tier. It's not this for the same reason as Bruiser Emblem. Bruiser Emblem's A tier because like there's a specific comp that it enables and it makes it into like a really good comp that you can play around, and it has a cool bonus effect. Divinicorp basically just gives your whole team Omnivam. So no matter what, a Divinicorp Emblem can often be something that you make if you just have like a random spatula. It helps your whole board because it just gives your whole board some sort of stat. Additionally, even though Divinicorps aren't like that crazy of a comp right now, they do cap very high if you have a Divinicorp emblem, because playing deep into the Divinicorp trait, you can basically stack those bonuses onto any unit in a very effective way, right? So if we put like all the Divinicorps in, I'll give you an example, right? A lot of times you play Divinicorp Slayer, or you can play Divinicorps, like add in a couple of them with like Vex, for example, if you're playing like a Vex board. The thing about Divinicorps is that they gain double the stats if you give them the emblem. So putting the emblem on basically anybody, like any 5-cost late game, if you have some sort of Divinicorp in, like it doesn't have to be like all of the Divinicorps, you don't have to be playing like 7 Divinicorp, but even if you're playing like 2 or 3 or 4, they're going to get so many stats that this emblem is just an insane amount of stats on one particular unit, while also giving your whole board a team-wide buff. So it's just very effective. It's very strong. It's just like, it's hard to justify it because a lot of times if you're making an emblem, you know, you're not usually playing deep into a Divinicorp line. So this is more of like a flex play thing, which isn't super apparent right now on the patch. It might just be like the set's really new, and then eventually Divinicorp emblem will be a little bit more of a go-to. But basically it can make anybody into a demon, and that's like a main thing to keep in mind. So if you ever have one, or if you have the opportunity for one, it actually works out really nicely. So we'll put in A tier. Dynamo emblem, right now, I put in as big unknown. I'm putting in D tier. I think right now, if I were to rank it, I'd put in C tier. The problem with Dynamo is that Aurora just got nerfed. So she's a little bit less effective. She's still fine, by the way. She's not that bad. Like, if you have an Aurora 2, she still does dummy damage. She still does great. But the problem is that MF, over time, is kind of been, like, accepted as being, like, kind of shit. Or not super, like, great in the meta. So playing around Vertical Dynamo isn't that great. However, I'm pretty sure it's actually really good in like the Vex comp. So if you don't know, like when you play Vex with Exotech, otherwise known as Vexotech, as people like to call it, a lot of times you're playing Vex and then you play a Morgana in your backline to activate the extra Divinicorp synergy. So your board looks something like this. Exotech. Roughly, like, this is like your core somewhat, and then you activate, who else do you play? I forget. Sorry, you play Jax and this guy. There you go. This is like what your board typically looks like, and you play the Morgana, because Morgana gives you Dynamo for your whole board, as well as it gives you like the extra Divinicorp synergy, which is AP, which is really good for Vex, because getting base AP gets doubled because of Divinicorp, and Vex is an executioner, so she crits, so getting that is really powerful. The the Dynamo emblem, it also gives you damage amp, which is really powerful with the mana spent, and Vex basically just like repeatedly spends mana. With this board, activating, like Morgana is really good to play, but activating it and maybe dropping some of these other units like the Jhin and playing some other like Exotechs or some other units in general, it actually works out really well. And I think it has like decent stats in these type of setups because it does have a really cool bonus effect. With the damage amp per 10 mana spent. Now, it's not that much damage amp, mind you, it's not going to be that crazy, but if a fight lasts long enough, which it often does if you're playing around the Sejuani Exotech line, it actually becomes really meaningful. Dynamo also helps your whole board, it buffs your whole board, right? Your team basically gains extra mana. Dynamos gain more mana, but your team in general will just gain an extra bit of mana, which actually helps out everybody, right? Having the Sejuani cast a little bit earlier is nice, having Mordekaiser cast a little bit earlier is nice, having your backline units cast earlier to do damage is really nice. So activating 2 Dynamo is actually pretty substantial on a lot of different boards. It's just like I can't rank it well because I don't know enough about it, so that's why I'm going to put it in D tier. Not because it's bad, I usually just reserve this, like I said in all my other tier lists. The D tier is just where I put stuff where I don't have enough experience to give you a strong justified opinion about it, where I feel like it's pretty reliable as like not truth, but like, you know, like I feel confident about it. Here it's like I feel like it's strong in some situations, but you know, stats and everything else tells me that it's shit. So I don't want to just like bait you guys, so I just put in unknown and you guys can try it out at your own risk. That's like the point of the D tier. Executioner emblem. So Executioner emblem, the bonus effect, ignoring the armor and mages, is actually really strong. Additionally, Executioner emblem is actually pretty essential on Executioner comps a lot of the times. The problem is it's been falling out of favor a little bit, so I'm just going to put in B tier. It felt kind of like a Bruiser emblem before, where Executioners had a huge spike with it, because 5 Executioner, here I'll just put in Vex for now so you guys can see what I'm talking about. 5 Executioner used to give durability. So the durability is really important because a lot of your execution, your frontline units, you wanted the durability so that they would live a little bit longer. Think like your Rengar and your Graves. But now, whenever you play Rengar, you usually play him more in Street Demon, and the setup is just not to play 5 Executioner, but instead to just leverage the survivability of the Rengar with having extra HP from Street Demon, because 7 Street Demon was buffed so much. So it doesn't feel like you play it that much anymore, but before, it's hard to hit 5 Executioner without the emblem because you need to high roll the Urgot, so it actually helped you to stabilize really efficiently, and it was a really good item to put on other units. So for example, you would play this board with like 5 Street Demon and a Jinx, and then you could put the Executioner emblem on the Jinx, go for Jinx 3, and then the Jinx is also going to do a lot, like a shit ton of damage because she's going to ignore armor and magic resist. It's basically going to be like, not exactly true damage, but like kind of like dealing extra true damage, where you're just bypassing armor and magic resist, which is just crazy. It's really good. So the only problem is it's falling a little bit out of favor, because I think the way to optimize it now is you just don't play around 5 Executioner anyways these days, so it's not as important. So it's similar to Anima Squad. If you have a spot for and you're playing it, it's great to have and great to make, but if you're not, it's like it's not something you can technically like unlock something new or do something crazy with it. Exotech emblem I think has fallen off quite a bit. I think the vertical Exotech line is a little bit awkward to play around. I want to put it in B tier. It could also be C tier, but it's just like, I think you're just a lot less stable now because like the Exotech line is kind of like awkwardly contested by everybody. Just like that's how it always is, just because the units are really good in like other comps. Think like Vex comps, Mordekaiser and like Techy comps, and Bruiser has a lot of synergies, and Sejuani is just a really good tank, and a lot of times she just finds her way into some of the other comps if people hit them. Vertical Exotech is a little bit awkward now. I think Exotech emblem is really good because it unlocks some sort of synergies with units. So for example, like there's certain Exotech items. If you put an Exotech emblem on a different unit, you can put Exotech items on them. So think like V8, one of the broken synergies that like people talk about a little bit, or I think it's still good in the stats because it even got buffed, is like Cyber Coil on Viego, right? Like this is like an insane item because it just like gives him a bunch of stats that he likes, which is like armor and magic, right? Armor and magic resist, but then he also heals by marking a bunch of enemies, so he just jumps the back line, starts diving them, cast, heal, and he never fucking dies because he has 65 armor and 65 magic resist. It's like turbo good on him, right? So there's like synergies like that that get unlocked with Exotech, and there's a couple more which I think I talked about a little bit in my Exotech video, I believe, but either way, so I'm gonna put in B tier. I think it might be a little bit worse because the trait in general is just a lot less played nowadays and just doesn't feel that great into the current landscape of the game. Like, you know, like trying to stall out with the Zeri against a Brand, for example, is just a really bad matchup because the Zeri will eventually get sniped by the Brand, you know, stuff like that. Like it's reasons for that Exotech becomes like really awkward to play around. But I'm still gonna put in B tier because I think that if you're playing around Exotech, it's similar to Anima Squad. It's actually really good because it unlocks you a lot of high cap potentials, like what I was just talking about. Not necessarily even broken synergies, but just being able to play more 5 costs because you have a lot of traits that you can synergize with that helps you out quite a bit. Golden Ox, I'm going to put Golden Ox in B tier. Now, Golden Ox has the potential to be S tier, right? But I think Golden Ox, or playing towards vertical Golden Ox, is very bait. I think that a lot of people overplay it because, like, basically if you don't get punished, you go Giga first, right? 100% of the time. However, this comp has a really high 8th rate. It's very easy to just lose out with just playing around Golden Ox, so it's very bait. So it's very situational. It's not super great as like a +1 because you don't really care too much about, like, outside of like playing 6 Golden Ox, you don't care too much about hitting like 4 Golden Ox. 2 Golden Ox is sometimes good, but a lot of times you can fit that in anyways. Like if you're trying to play a Golden Ox carry in a 2 Golden Ox situation, you usually have the setup for that. Think like Aphelios with what's his name? Aphelios with like Jarvan, is you usually just play the Vanguards with the Aphelios. So it's not S tier, right? It has the potential to be if your spot's really good, but you can't just force into it because it's a very conditional comp. You have to be playing it from ahead and you have to be really strong. You can argue that it's A tier because of how strong the comp is and how you can win out with it. But to me personally, I don't want to bait people. I think it's like kind of mid. I don't think it does that much for you unless you have an insane opener for it, right? If you start the game out and you have 3 Golden Ox and you have a Golden Ox emblem and 4 Golden Ox, or if you hit 6 Golden Ox really early with it, it makes sense, right? I wouldn't play Golden Ox vertical, like 6 Golden Ox without the Golden Ox emblem. So you can consider it kind of like the Bruiser emblem, except it doesn't really give you that stability. You kind of have to have the stability already from your board and having a good spot for it. So I'm going to put in the same tier as the other ones, as just being like, you know, not super crazy, but caps you really high, maybe even higher than some of the other ones. Marksman Emblem has a really good effect. So I think Marksman Emblem is kind of useless, right? Marksman as a trait is a 4 trait, so you kind of don't need Marksman Emblem ever, right? Like, if you're playing around the Marksman boards, a lot of times they just play 4 Marksman anyways, and you're pretty stable and you're pretty reliable. However, it can allow you to cap a lot higher, because it basically allows you to play deeper into your front line with a lot of those comps you can fit in like a crazy board on level 9, or you can play more legendaries. If you read the Marksman trait, it also gives you a really good effect where basically it reduces armor by 2, which is pretty crazy, because this is like flat reduction that I think will also stack with like base sundering if you already do sundering already with like other items. So it actually reduces the armor by a lot, which gives you a lot of extra damage for your whole board. And considering that the marksmen in general are all doing AD, it's actually a really effective emblem with those comps, and it can also help you to cap. So just based on the effect of it, I think it's kind of B tier, but I would say it's very situational when you take this emblem, because a lot of times it does nothing, because like especially on level 8, you're not really able to put in anybody crazy in place of one of your other marksman units anyways, so it's kind of just like a dead spot a lot of the time. However, if you can make it to level 9, you can actually cap really high with it. It does have a really cool bonus effect that can actually help you a lot, especially in your early game and mid game. Because if you had an early marksman emblem, for example, like let's say it's like a loot sub and you have a frying pan, it actually can cap you extremely high. It can also stabilize you, that allows you to cap really high. Because what it can do in those early rounds is basically just like bypass armor and magic resist, or make it so that you have extra damage, right? By reducing their armor. By doing that, it allows you to postpone making those utility items till later in your game. So it actually can help you to kind of like have that like optimization in your mid game that you otherwise might not be able to have. Now, maybe that's a little bit of bias. I think you can argue that it's like a little bit lower, like C tier. I don't think it's much higher, like if you're ranking it relative to the other emblems, because it's not like, it's very specific where you play it. But I really like the bonus effect of it, which is why I'm bumping it to B tier here. Rapid Fire, I think, is really good for its bonus effect. However, it's very situational. It's similar to Marksman, right? Rapid Fire has a really good synergy. I think a lot of times people will put Rapid Fire on like a Renekton is like the popular TikTok one, but you can put on a lot of different units. Basically, it gives the unit +2 range. So this basically works similar to like a Sniper's Focus or an RFC, Rapid Fire Cannon, like all of those things. It basically, you put on the unit and now they become a backline unit. So you can put on a melee unit and then all of a sudden they just go nuts. It's really on Renekton because Renekton just loves to have attack speed, and Rapid Fire as a synergy gives you a bunch of attack speed. However, right now, Rapid Fire isn't really a trait that you play towards. Like I was talking about how Marksman emblem does nothing because like you usually can fit in 4 Marksmen. I'm telling you what, I don't think there's a single comp where you actively justify playing 4 Rapid Fire. Like, it actually doesn't matter. And a lot of times you're playing 2 Rapid Fire, which you can usually fit in anyways. But the bonus effect of this emblem is so damn good and so cool, and allows you to do some really creative high cap potential for late game, that it deserves to be a little bit above some of the other ones. So it's not like C tier. It's like, it's definitely something that like you can, like it has a giga synergy, right? So that's why it's in that B tier section. Slayer Emblem, I don't really like Slayer Emblem that much. I personally think it's C tier. Now, that might sound a little bit crazy. I'm unsure exactly where to rank it. I don't want to put it here though, because I don't think there's any broken synergy that much. I feel like a lot of the times when I'm playing a Slayer comp, I don't really care about hitting 6 Slayer, right? Like if you think about Shaco board, or if you think like Shaco, maybe you play 6 Slayer. That's you know what? Shaco, you play 6 Slayer usually. I correct myself. But like a lot of times you're playing Vayne, Senna, Jarvan, what's his name? Zed. Like if you're playing solo Zed, you're usually playing with Divinicorp and you go for Divinicorp synergies, right? At one point, the Slayer synergy, like the 6 Slayer isn't that popular, isn't that common. And hitting the Slayer emblem usually means that you have to play 1 less of the other traits. So a lot of times if you're playing a Slayer emblem, and you're playing like, you know, Slayer Vanguards, for example, where you're playing like Vayne backline, it's kind of awkward because you don't want to drop any of your Vanguards that are in your front line, because you need the front line to sustain the Vayne, but then you have this extra Slayer emblem, so a lot of times you're just playing like an extra Slayer for no reason, and it doesn't, like it helps you cap really high, but like outside of very specific situations, a lot of times it just kind of does nothing, right? Like, your board's complete on level 7. If you're playing around like Slayer Divinicorp, you'd rather play more Divinicorp units, because if you can stack the Divinicorp traits, you're way better off, because you hit one Garen, transfer Divinicorp over to all your other units, and then all of a sudden you're doing insane damage. Like, those are things that seem to matter a little bit more. I think this really is cool if you have like what's it called, like a Shaco board, because it helps you to like fit in some of those synergies a little bit better, because in that case you're usually trying to juggle between having Slayer, having what's it called, Syndicate, and having the other stuff in. So it's like, you know, but I think it's like C tier. I think it's very situational. I think you treat it similar to like Boombot emblem. You're not always taking it, and you're only really making it if you have a spot for it. Maybe it's a little bit higher. I can see you putting it in B tier, but I think that these ones, I kind of like them a little bit more than Slayer Emblem. So like, if I was going to space it out a little bit, I'd maybe put these ones like lower and Slayer like one section below the other one. But it's fine. Like, you know, you decide to yourself, justify whether or not you really need it, and then you could put it higher. I just don't think it's that crazy, and I don't think it caps your board that much higher in the situations where you hit it. Strategist emblem now we're talking. I think the strategist emblem's S tier. So strategist emblem has two things, right? Number one, it gives you strategist trait. So strategist trait means that you get triple the amount of the normal strategist stats, right? So if we go to, let's go here and let's just find a strategist. Echo. I always like saying echo because I get to like fake echo sounds. But with strategist, basically, strategists will get triple the amount of bonus that you have. So either frontline, you're getting damage amp, backline, you're getting frontline, you're getting damage reduction, and backline, you're getting damage amp. So both of these are insanely good stats. They're just great, and you get triple, which just gives you an insane amount of stats really easily and really efficiently. Additionally, it's also really meta right now. The strategists themselves are really strong, so it makes sense. Fitting it in, it's a 2 synergy, so you can actually just get it for your board. And similar to Divinicorp, it gives your whole board that setup. Now, I think Divinicorp, the bonuses on the Divinicorp units sometimes is powerful and sometimes isn't, right? Like, for example, the Divinicorp emblem itself gives just Omnivamp, and some of the other Divinicorp synergies, like, you know, like, you're forced to play certain units that might not fit with your board in order to give you the synergy that you really want. So like, it's a little bit more awkward to play around. Strategist, however, all your frontline units get tankier, all your backline do more damage, and whoever's holding the strategist emblem, not only do they get the strategist trait where they're getting triple, they also get 50% of the other strategist bonus. So this works really well on frontline units like strategist emblem Kabuko, or even strategist emblem on Samira. They basically get like the extra durability or the damage amp, which helps them a lot in just being like a really big threat. So it has a huge high cap potential. It works really good in the comp. Obviously, if you're playing strategist, it works really well in that comp because it allows you to play a lot of the other traits that you want to have active. Like a lot of times you're playing strategist with amp, or you're playing strategist with street demon, so you can play all of those synergies as well, which is crazy. And then additionally, even if you're not playing around those boards, it has a really good effect to cap your board because it's a team-wide buff that you can use in similar fashion to all the other ones by just having a 2 trait in, and it buffs your whole board and it gives meaningful stats to your whole board. Like a lot of times, like if you're playing certain things, it's like, oh, do I really want tankiness on my backline, or do I really want like AP or damage on my front line? Here it gives you like tailored. It gives you like tailored to what you want. It gives you frontline stats for your frontline and backline stats for your backline, which is typically just like good. It just works out really nicely. So obviously, could be biased. I understand that. I always talk about this whenever I feel like I'm saying something biased. Same with like Marksman emblem, same with like Slayer emblem. Like some of these are pretty obvious where they fall, some of them are debatable. I'm a huge fan of strategist as a trait. It was my favorite trait when I started playing in set 9. It's still my favorite trait even this set. You know, if I can play strategist every single game, I would. But you know, of course, I'm dictated by whatever other people in my lobby are playing, because I try and play as well as I can, not to contest, and try and find a line that's able to be played. But either way, you know, if you want to bump it down, go ahead, but I feel like I can justify that it's a lot better than some of the other emblems. Street Demon. So I personally think Street Demon is really good. I actually think it's a little bit better than B tier. So the reason is that Street Demon actually gives team-wide buffs, again, similar to the other ones. If you can fit in, so right now Street Demon is very meta, right? When I'm making this video, Street Demon is really broken. So obviously, if Street Demon gets nerfed as a trait, it will be lower than A tier in the future. But I'm trying to make it, you know, while still being relevant to the current set, trying to talk about, or current patch, I'm still trying to talk about it relative to the entire set. Street Demon as a trait, it's similar to like some of the other ones where you're playing towards a deep vertical trait, but it also gives you like these hexes that you can place your units on, right? These hexes, even if you're not having an active Street Demon unit with the Street Demon emblem, they will still give HP, AP, and AD to those units. It actually helps you to cap really high. In the past, before Street Demon was like everybody played Street Demon all the time, which is what the current patch is, Street Demon was really fun to play around with 5 costs and strategist and 5 costs. Now the Street Demon like strategist, amp, and all of that, like it's kind of like finds its footing in like a lot of the comps, which is part of like the saturation of like Street Demon, the current meta, just because like certain units are really good and then like everybody's playing the same, it feels like everybody's playing the same board sometimes. But the benefit of Street Demon, just buffing your whole board, is similar to some of these other ones that I talk about, where no matter what, it's pretty useful. And if you can just fit in the 3 Street Demon, or if you find 2 other Street Demons, it works really well. So it's a little bit harder to fit in than some of the other traits like Divinicorp and Strategist that are a little bit easier to fit in. However, Street Demon itself is also really strong, and having a Street Demon emblem to cap out that board is also extremely massive, extremely powerful. It allows you to fit in more amp, fit in more Strategist, fit in other synergies, fit in more 5 costs, etc. So to me, it's like a tier above some of these other vertical traits, because but part of that is skewed because it is really relevant in the current landscape of the current patch. I just want to make that, if you watch this in the future, just know right now it's the Street Demon patch, so it's going to be a little bit higher. I don't think it's as good as Strategist though, because it is a little bit harder to fit in, so I'm going to put it a tier below Strategist. Syndicate. So Syndicate is one of those emblems that is sneaky really good. I think Syndicate emblem, low-key, is one of the best emblems you can hit if you're playing around Syndicates. The biggest problem with Syndicates is that like the units are so fucking far away from each other in terms of the synergies that they have, that it makes it really awkward to play around the Syndicate line without the emblem. So it's similar to like Golden Ox, similar to like some Executioner. It's a really good emblem to have. However, it's actually a very reliable emblem that spikes you really hard in your mid game, and I'll explain why. So a lot of times when you're playing Syndicate, right, you want to have a 5 Syndicate in. I can't spell Syndicate, I'm sorry guys, it's a struggle out here. So you usually want to play 5 Syndicate in your mid game. It's 5 Syndicate, usually you're playing around TF. Oh, I put in 2, I missed a Braum. Right, you're usually playing a board that looks something like this. When you're playing 5 Syndicate, you want 5 Syndicate in because it will give you 2 Kingpins. The 2 Kingpins will allow you to have a front line that gets a really good front line effect, as well as picking your back line to have the really strong back line effect. The Syndicate emblem allows you to play a more meaningful board at low levels because you can play 3 Syndicate a lot earlier, and then it allows you to cap really high with the 5 Syndicate. Basically, if you look at this board, unless you're playing Shaco reroll, this Shaco is fucking useless, right? Like, he does nothing. He's not really tanking. He's not really doing that much damage. You're never going to have items for the Shaco anyways. Like, you really don't give a fuck about this. So having a Syndicate emblem actually allows you to remove that guy from your board, and now you have a lot better of an opportunity to cap this board. So a lot of times what people end up doing is they'll play like Draven, right? Like Draven is now the go-to reroll with the TF and actually caps really high. Like you play Draven 3 with TF 3. But with a Syndicate emblem, you could also play deeper into frontline synergies like Vanguards. You can just play like, you know, where's the other Vanguards? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is 7 units, right? So on level 8, when you reach level 8, you can basically play this board, but you can fit in 4 Vanguard. Because you have a Syndicate emblem. If you don't have a Syndicate emblem, you're unable to do this. You can't play 5 Syndicate and 4 Vanguard. But if you're able to reach this type of board, right, this is actually a lot higher of a cap board. And then if you make it to level 9, you could also play Aurora, and all of a sudden, this is like a Twisted Fate reroll board where a lot of times you're going for Braum 3, Twisted Fate 3. If you actually high roll and you hit these units ahead of tempo, this Syndicate emblem actually makes this a comp that is like a very reliable top 4 into like a Giga first. Like, it's actually like an insanely strong board that you can fit in because your front line is so stable and so reliable, and you're basically getting rid of this useless fucking Shaco all the time. So it's actually really strong. Additionally, 7 Syndicate is pretty easy to hit because it's a 7 trait. So even though it requires 2 emblems, if you high roll 2 emblems, you also have a really good win condition. We didn't really talk about that with some of the other emblems, but Street Demon, Anima Squad, Exotech, and Syndicate, these are all kind of like win conditions. I think Street Demon is strong. Anima Squad. I think Street Demon is strong. How do I phrase it? Exotech is the strongest. Then it's Street Demon. Then it's Anima Squad. I think. I might be wrong about that. Or maybe Anima Squad's a little bit better than Street Demon. I'm unsure. And then Syndicate's a little bit weaker because obviously 7 Syndicate is going to be weaker than like 10 Street Demon, 10 Anima Squad, and 10 Exotech. And 10 Exotech needs 3 emblems. So that one's like Giga Cap. That's like the Giga strong one. Right? But 7 Syndicate is still like game winning in most lobbies. So it's actually a win condition as well. I think that it's actually really strong. Like this is like, you know, same tier as like Bruiser emblem. It really unlocks the comp to put it into like that contender for first in your lobby. So for the same reason, I want to put it in that same tier, which feels a little bit awkward, right? Because I think like if you look at a lot of these other emblems, you're probably like, you know, well, if Syndicate emblem A tier, why isn't Golden Ox A tier? It's like, I kind of tried to explain it the best I could before. But, you know, if you disagree, that's fine. You can put it lower on your own tier list. You know what you guys should do? If you guys disagree with me, you guys should just, like, go on this website and make your own tier list. You know? And then you could, like, post on your Twitter. Or whatever you use. I don't use Twitter anymore. I only use Blue Sky. So, you know, you'll never find me to tag. But anyways. Techy emblem. The holder gains the Techy trait. This one gives 15 more ability power, which is actually pretty good. I'm going to put in B tier, though. I don't know where it falls. So, I think that 6 Techy is pretty good, right? Like, I think 6 Techy is really good. I think Techy has a really good high cap. So, like, let's just take Brand, for example. Like, 6 Techy, it's like a huge spike in power, right? Like, from 4 to 6 Techy, usually if you're playing Techys, you can fit in 4 Techy. But right now, the Techy line is not really played that much because Street Demon is just so much better. Before, you used to play like low Street Demon and more Techy. You used to play like 3 Street Demon or 5 Street Demon, and then you would play like 4 or 6 Techy if you had an emblem for it. A lot of times, your good holder of an emblem is like a Ziggs or somebody that you can just fit into the board that synergizes with like your Techy strategist Street Demon board. However, I feel like it's just not necessary or essential. Right? Like, I'm not sitting here thinking to myself, I need a Techy emblem so I can hit 6 Techy. It's like, a lot of times if you're playing deeper into Techy, you're losing out on, like, your cap damage potential of, like, your other units. Because, like, a lot of times you're better off just playing Street Demon that gives you a lot of frontline in addition to giving you a bunch of AP. Right? So, having Techy in, like, 8 Techy is pretty much never played because it's just shit. Like, you just don't have enough front lines to support it, so it just doesn't make sense to ever play. And then a lot of times you're playing a lot of these shit units that are very low cap. I think it's pretty good if you're playing, like, Vanguard reroll in some cases. But, like, even then, it's like usually you just play 4 Techy, 4 Cyber Boss, and you call it a day and you make it to level 9 if you can. I think that, like, in certain lines, like, if you're playing, like, around Street Demon Brand, you could fit in a Viego on your level 9. But, like, a lot of times you don't want to do that anyways because you want to play, like, Kabuko for more frontline. So, like, you know, it feels very awkward. It feels like whenever you have a Techy emblem, it's like you're trying to force yourself to play a weaker comp just to make use of the Techy emblem. That's what it feels like. So that's why I put in B tier. Now, it's still B tier, like, it's not like C tier or lower, because I think that it has a really good bonus effect of 15% more ability power. So even if you don't get baited by it, like to play deeper into the Techy line, it's still like a really good item that gives you a lot of extra AP. Like if you put a Techy emblem on a Ziggs, even with 2 Techy, it actually works out to be like a lot of extra AP. So it's actually a valid item that gives you the potential to cap a little bit higher if you have a certain setup that you can take advantage of it. So I think it's still pretty good. I think it's still like something you can play around. Like it's definitely a playable emblem. So it goes into that B tier of like, you know, you hit it and you can maybe make use of it, but it's not like something you really want to see all the time and just take all the time. And then Vanguard emblem. I think Vanguard emblem has really good high cap potential. I really like Vanguard emblem. It's just hard to fit in the Vanguard trait. I'm going to put it in the same tier as Marksman. It kind of goes hand in hand in my head of Marksman. It's like usually Marksman or Vanguard are things that you don't necessarily need or want. It doesn't necessarily unlock anything crazy. Like there are some cool synergies, like if you Vanguard a Bruiser and then they gain the extra max health and they kind of go nuts with it. But it's not that crazy in my opinion. Like I think I was like, you know, some units it's kind of good. Like, I think it was good on Mordekaiser at one point. But I'm unsure like exactly who it's crazy on. I don't think it's super great. I don't think I'm ever looking at it and saying to myself, damn, I really want to take a Vanguard emblem right now. It's not something that's like crazy or flashy, but it's something that does help you to cap pretty high, right? If you're playing any version of a board that uses 4 Vanguards, so right now it's Marksman is the main one. Before there was like 4 Vanguards with Dynamo, that used to be a thing. It allows you to play towards 6 Vanguard, which is another cap opportunity late game. Also, the bonus effect is pretty good. It's just that, like, besides very niche lines that you want to play around it, it's not that crazy. So, you know, I don't want to put it in C tier because I still think that it has a good effect, and I think that it has a good ability, and I think that it is a quite meaningful thing because the Vanguard trait is really strong on a lot of units. Just giving them a bunch of health shield is really powerful. So I'm gonna put it in B tier, but you know, you can put it in C tier as well. You know what I mean? It can go here or here. I just think that if you see it and you play and you can actually make use of it, it has a little bit of a better effect than some of these ones. So I kind of like it a little bit there. Anyways, that was me talking about the emblems and talking about the bonus effects and all of that stuff. Like I said, the main reason I did this video today was because I spent all this time talking about the emblems, or sorry, I spent all this time not talking about the emblems when I was talking about the augments. I basically skipped over all the emblems one. I didn't really rank them in the tier list. So I wanted to do this one just like for sake of completeness, because I was looking at my videos, I was looking at my schedule that I made for myself of what I'm uploading on my channel, and I was like, hey, you know, I want to talk about this at one point. I was going to talk about it a little bit later in the set when some of these are more flushed out. Right now, I still think that the current like, you know, this isn't, I want to be very clear also, this isn't me insulting the devs in any ways. I'm just saying, like, right now it feels like the meta is still in a volatile state. Like, we haven't reached that stability point in the set yet where like the comps are kind of like flushed out, that we kind of know what we're doing with everything. It still feels like we're figuring out lines and figuring out stabilization points, and there's still like wild swings and what becomes meta and what isn't meta and what's good and what's not good. So I want to do this a little bit later because I think that, like, by next patch, my opinions on a lot of these emblems might drastically change. However, just for completeness of those other things that I talked about, like the prismatic augments that I posted yesterday, I want to talk about them today. If you like the content, please make sure to like and subscribe because it does help me out. And like I said, if you're looking forward to stuff like Ornn artifacts and how to play forecasts, as well as econ guides, those are coming in the next couple of days. Those ones are always ones that take a lot of time and a lot of like extra work for me to do. So, you know, whenever we have these tier list ones that are more for fun, it's to make room for the more informative content that's going to come in the next couple days. So if you want to see those ones, make sure to like and subscribe, because then you'll get the notice telling you that, hey, I posted the video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day and see ya. Bye bye.